MJ, in case we die.
You do love me,
I do.
even though you said you didn't.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello, and welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Dai, same to you. We're here.
Yeah. Another 2 weeks, feeling like a month.
I know.
Doing things and stuff and things. Yeah, we've had another busy time.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, right. I'm like, dude, I think I need a long weekend because
I need a long weekend that's at least a week long.
Facts. Gosh, yeah, so much has been happening. Had a really busy weekend. I know you did as well.
Yeah, I just got back from New Jersey on
Joysy.
Monday, working at a festival, so that was really fun.
Yeah. Was it a 2-day festival?
2-day festival, yeah, but got it on Friday.
Yeah.
Flew back home Monday morning.
Amazing.
Just working almost pretty much nonstop, but
Yep.
you know, you always try to find a balance of work and play. Bucky, yeah. I swear if you press a button on my laptop, I'm keeping this in.
Hey, Buck, you gotta nope. Buck, get off the laptop. There you go. It's funny. I was out and about. 2 days of The Last of Us opening up at Gallery Nucleus. It's 10th anniversary of the first game.
That's nice.
And so they had signings, and I was lucky enough. It's so funny. Like, I didn't get tickets for anything else I'd tried for like this past year at Gallery because it's so small.
Yeah.
And so like even Spider-Verse, I didn't get into Spider-Verse.
Oh my gosh.
But I got in for both dates for The Last of Us. And I got the signing sessions, so I got to like mingle with the creators, which is awesome because of course Neil Druckmann was there, and I got to have some words with him, and he was really kind, and it was a great event. Yeah, shout out to podcast Bottles and Bricks, the Last of Us podcast, really cool fellow who hosts that show. And I told him, I was like, man, when I was considering like, what if I did like a Last of Us podcast? I looked at his name and I was like, I remember being like, dang, that's a good one. And then so I got to meet him, and he's really nice, and he does a lot of vlogging and stuff. And so it was really cool because I told, another friend, I was like, it almost felt like going to a convention for the very first time, because it was like, oh, I've never been around like really hardcore Last of Us fans. I've never, ever. I always feel like the only one. Mm-hmm. And so this was the first time like people that are like, serious.
Oh,
like one guy went in and he bought 6 pieces of original art for $6,000. You know what I mean?
My gosh.
It was wild. So yeah, shout out to all those folks that I met there. It was really fun. And then thanks to Jeff nudging me, I like literally cartwheeled over to the Loki pop-up right after the Sunday session. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so I mapped it out and I was like, I'm out.
How far was it?
And it's a drive because I was coming from Pasadena.
That's where the Last of Us thing was?
Yeah, I went to Pasadena.
Oh my
twice.
God.
Yeah, I made that drive. It wasn't that bad. It was like 45 minutes.
That's actually not bad.
But yeah, it's not that bad. It's far, but it's
not
it's
that bad.
pretty fast. It certainly would have took less to get there than it would have like Universal Studios.
100%.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But the trip from Pasadena to Long Beach, or Inglewood rather, that was
it's Inglewood, right?
It was, yeah. It's like it's like right in the backyard of Inglewood.
It's like, okay.
And so I had to go all the way back that way, but I was happy to see it was still going, and they still had donuts. And so I picked up my free Ms. Minutes donut and a couple of others.
How insane was the big donut?
It's
on top of the building.
It's funny because it just looks like it's Miss Minutes because she's wrapped around the donut.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I made a quick reel on our Instagram account. The donuts are a little rough. They look a cockeyed.
Oh.
But they taste delicious. I
Okay.
promise. Yeah, no,
That's good.
They're fantastic. But that was really fun. And it was interesting because like I felt I was the only one who was there for it.
Oh, really? No one knew. They're like,
knew.
what the hell happened to Randy's Donuts?
like a couple of other families like pulled up just as I did. And then like they like pointed at it and they looked at the Loki thing and they're like, oh, that's cool. But they didn't, I don't think they knew about the donut. So I rolled up to the window and I was like, oh, like, do you have any more Ms. Minutes? And they're like literally putting a shelf in and they're like, oh yeah, we got a bunch. And I was like, oh, can I get 2? And then he was like, they're free, right? It's 1 per person. I was like, oh, well, can I get 1 extra? And he was like, yeah. And then everybody behind me like had no idea. They were like, oh, they're $3.70 each. Oh, I don't know if I want one. And then the girl was like, wait, what did he say? And I was like, yeah, they're free 1 per person today only.
Wow.
So it was just for that day. But they do sell them otherwise. And I heard somebody else saying that like people were in line for 2 hours to get them the day before. And the day before that, I guess, when they had first launched it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so people were waiting in line for that donut.
Do you know how many days the promotion was going?
I don't know. It might still be up, but
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Up until October 6th.
I know,
Which is
right?
next on the...
I know. Well, actually, now it's October 5th, so they pushed it up one day.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so Loki season 2 coming in October 5th on a Thursday. Interesting. I mean, I guess that's better. Fridays are a little rough because people are doing stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, other things that are happening aside Bucky playing with his ball all up and down the stairs.
It is what it is.
The new look at the Marvels came out. I have not watched that. Did you watch that?
I actually did not even watch that.
Oh,
I have not. Well, 'cause
Yeah.
I thought it was just like a 30-second thing.
No,
and
it's a
I
long
think it was
thing,
over the
yeah.
weekend, and I was like, I'm working. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't watch it. It's fine.
and me, I was like, no, exposure. I can't. It's almost here. And so on top of that, of course, the Assembled are out for both Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Secret Invasion. So all of those things I've not watched yet.
I've only seen the Guardians one.
And yeah, like to your point, they're not really
promoting
anything, which is kind of weird.
one post on Twitter and Instagram, and
Yeah.
it's done.
I wonder why, but well, whatever. But be sure to go watch those. I will definitely be doing that when I have a moment next year.
True.
Aside that, nothing else major on the docket. Not now, at least. And so I guess we can just roll right into the episode because this one's going to be a doozy. And it's one long time coming. But before all that, a reminder, we are not experts and we don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. And this episode, we will be nerding out over Mary Jane Watson. MJ, if you so desire. So let's take it right back to the top. Created by Mr. Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita Sr. And so Mary Jane is one of the characters that, once again, she has a cameo, and then she also has a first appearance. And so we're going to gauge the cameo as far as the prices go.
Yeah.
And so for a June 1965 comic, Amazing Spider-Man number 25, you want to guess that cover price? 1965.
Oh, the cover price.
Cover price.
We're not doing resale prices yet.
No.
1965.
Mm-hmm.
Guys have gotten this right once, I think.
No, you got it twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
1965. 12 cents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the cover with a mechanical J. Jonah Jameson.
I was going to say, what is that?
Yeah. They used to do all these really goofy, like,
Covers.
yeah, and stories where it's just like, what kind of goofy mishap can we
Sure.
put Spider-Man in? And so this one happens to involve J. Jonah Jameson. But this cameo, before I get into the prices, this one's really funny because, like, how we've discussed with Rocket Raccoon, for instance, right?
Yeah.
His technical first appearance is just a cameo because he goes by Rocky.
Yes.
It's not Rocket Raccoon,
Yeah.
it's Rocky. And so other ones, like Yelena Belova, for instance. She never says her name. She just says she's the Black Widow.
Yeah,
it's a cameo.
yeah.
So Mary Jane's is particularly funny because her cameo, I'm just going to show you the picture. And I'll post this on social media.
That?
So her face
Tap
is...
it?
Oh, sorry. Her face is completely covered. And that's her cameo. It's technically her first appearance, but it's a cameo because you don't see her face. So
Got it.
They're referring to her as Mary Jane,
Yeah.
but you don't see her face.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway, the first actual appearance happens in Amazing Spider-Man number 42. So it's another 2 years before you actually see her face in the comics.
Gosh.
And so throughout the entire 2 years since her quote unquote introduction, they just refer to her by name. Oh, Mary Jane, not aunt, but Anna's niece. Anna is the next door neighbor to Aunt May and Peter.
Yeah.
And they're just talking her up like, oh, you got to meet Mary Jane. You got to meet Mary. And he's like, no, I'm all right. And he's kind of like hovering around Gwen Stacy at this time. And so before we get into all of that, of course, so the cameo cover, the cameo comic, there was not one copy on Shortboxed, but I found one on eBay, a CGC 6.5 available for $3,000.
What the hell?
So
MJ,
yeah, but that's the cameo. It's not even the face cameo.
Oh yeah,
it's just the cameo of her with a flower in her face. Is $3,000 for 6.5. So you could probably get like I would say a 9.0 is probably closer to $10,000. Maybe more.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Whereas again, there was nothing on Shortboxed at all. But on eBay, there was a CGC 2.5 available for a cool $165. It's barely stitched together, but it's something. And then you could probably get a raw copy starting around 15, maybe 20 or up. And then for the first full appearance, which is by far the issue that if you want to get the Mary Jane, this is the one. So Amazing Spider-Man number 42, which was released in 1967, once again, or 1966, actually, I believe. And this is the cover for that one.
Ooh.
And this is where you get the infamous Face It Tiger.
Yep.
You just hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
So this is the very first panel that you see her face.
Wow.
And so I would tack on at least $1,000 or $2,000 more on top of any price you find for the other one, just for
that panel. Crazy.
It's wild. I think I've seen the original art floating around somewhere, and that alone, oh my God.
Probably a lot.
It's worth a mint. It's worth at least $50,000 or something.
Oh my God. Who has it?
I know.
Show
I
yourselves.
can't remember. So anyway, first exposure to the character.
Kirsten Dunst.
My
girl Kirsten. Did you see what she posted on Instagram the other day? Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
She posted a picture, I think, of her child, who and he's holding a Spider-Man umbrella. So she posted that. It's just you see the Spider-Man umbrella, and her caption is, she's like, "Little guy doesn't even know his mom is MJ." And I was like,
gosh.
yes.
How funny. So I would imagine he hasn't seen the movie.
Probably not, but he probably loves Spider-Man.
How funny is that? Yeah, he probably just knows cartoons. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
But yeah, Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah. Easy.
I know you feel a certain type of way of that take of the character. We talked about that in a lot of
little bit
previous episodes. And I see it, I get it because I rewatched everything and I'm like, oh, okay. She's playing kind of this, kind of snarky, kind of hypocritical, gaslighty a little bit.
A little bit
gaslight. Yes. Now that when I rewatched it, I'm like, oh. She's really she's making Peter feel bad because she
makes him feel so bad in those films. But and it's not even, oh my God, Bucky is on a roll today. It's not even so specific that it's that film, right? It's just that is kind of Mary Jane. That's who Mary Jane is that. And again, of course, I say all the time, we're going to get into it much more as we go along, but the character of Mary Jane herself is very let's be real, she's very self-centered. She's a very self-serving type of character. All things aside, but that's just one of the things about the dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny to watch it in retrospect, and you're like, oh.
You know what else was like a funny moment that I think I recently saw on YouTube, just watching clips from that trilogy.
Yeah.
I think it was the first movie. It was so like Mary Jane wants to become an actor, right?
Right.
And then Peter catches Mary Jane coming out of the diner because she's working out of the diner, but she's wearing her trench coat over it.
Yep.
And then Peter's like, he's like, why'd you come out of the diner? She's just like embarrassed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically, she's working at the diner for some extra money while she's doing auditions and stuff.
Exactly.
And she was so embarrassed of that. And in my head, I was like, why is she embarrassed? It's just a job. Like she's working a job. Like
she can't like
why was she so embarrassed?
Because she's talked herself up so hard, right?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'm gonna be an actress.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh, but she's a server.
You mean every person in Los Angeles, California?
And it's funny that you mentioned that because I posted that meme the other day, and I was like, caption this wrong answers only. And so we got some good ones actually, so I'll probably post those on social. But yes, and it's that exact scene where she's so like cringy, like
and then she was like totally gaslighting Pete. I forget the lines, but she was totally like, she's like, "Cuz Pete," and I'm just like, and he's like, "Whoa, I'm sorry, MJ."
Yeah,
he's like, "Bro, what the hell?"
Yeah, it's funny. I need to rewatch all three of them in retrospect because I grew up with that trio of films so distinctly.
Same. That's what got me into comic books,
right? Yeah, and so we'll get into that as we go along. I'm very certain. For me, probably again, it's the comics for sure because I used to read the backstories and all the older stuff as a kid, and then of course the animated series doubled down because I was more like aware of things by that time because like I'm telling you, like when I used to read the comics, I would buy these like bound like trades essentially from Barnes and Noble, and they had like the gray parameter and stuff, and so they were floppies. They were like $10 and you'd get like 20 issues or whatever was it in them, and I would just read the heck out of them. So that was kind of more or less my exposure to her, but I still knew Gwen first, which is interesting. But that might be why I have the certain connection with one and not the other.
That's fair.
But when you get to know the personalities, they're very different. I just said to a friend the other day, like she said something. She was saying something about. She's like, "Dai, you're so kind," and it was about somebody that maybe didn't deserve it. And I was like, "Look, in a world full of Mary Janes, you gotta be a Gwen Stacy." She was like, "Valid." And that's my motto. So, funny enough, I do not have... She is not in that mini hero book. I do not have a digital card that has something on the back of it. And I don't have a physical card of
So what
Mary
are
Jane.
her powers?
None.
What's her origin?
Zero. So I did find a short bio, which more or less gets it all done. And it says... Mary Jane Watson is an actress and a major love interest of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. They have had a long and dramatic on and off again relationship. She's one of the few people who know who he is and still supports him as a close friend and confidant. So it's basically what you just mentioned with Kirsten Dunst. It's like she's an actor, she's his love interest, and she knows who he is.
Mary Jane!
I can't tell if you're doing Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire.
That's definitely Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
Mary Jane! Just for no reason.
It's so funny. Oh, yeah.
For no
I know exactly
reason.
which one you're talking about. So, Mary Jane Watson, a.k.a. Jackpot, which we'll get into shortly. Being a star had always been MJ's goal. And so that's an interest she shared both with her mother and her older sister when it came to the comics. And so... her family moved around a lot. Apparently her dad was a teacher of some sort. And so whereas some kids might actually go introvert because of the fact of moving and having to make friends each and every time, Mary Jane was more of an extrovert, and it helped her be very popular. Basically, she got all of her people skills from moving around. And so, she was very extroverted, very outgoing from the get-go. And she used to star in high school productions of like Romeo and Juliet and A Streetcar Named Desire and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very proud about wanting to be a star of some sort. Like if she came out today and if they had followed like that path of the comic book in modern, in like Tom Holland's films, I'm almost certain she would have been labeled as an influencer. But they gave that to Betty Brant instead.
Oh.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and as she got older, her aspirations grew along with her, and so she started to land roles on Broadway, and of course, she didn't get there very easily, but inevitably became like essentially a movie star, on top of being a model as well, and so from the get-go, yeah, MJ is pretty much depicted as the girl next door with that special something. Because she's a redhead, fiery redhead, no doubt.
Love that.
And she's often admired for her beauty and her charisma, as well as the ability to light up the room with her bright personality. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, she's often regarded as Peter Parker's true love. And just like I said not too long ago, you know, MJ cemented her place in the Marvel Universe with just 8 words. Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot. Iconic. It's truly iconic.
It's always on Twitter. I see it on comic Twitter all the time.
I would never like discount that is easily one of the most memorable lines ever written. And then of course, you know, and I mentioned this to you before we recorded, Jeff, is that like up top, like her introduction is so short, but as we go along, there's so much to MJ as far as her intricacies go that we're going to cover as we go along. So yeah, bear with us. But Jackpot. So I mentioned she's AKA Jackpot. This is a very, very new thing. We'll talk about this more later in the show, but MJ is officially now the 3rd incarnation of a superhero named Jackpot that originally emerged in 2007, first helmed by Sarah Arnett and then subsequently another woman named Alana Jobson. So this is like super duper new. Like I'm talking like August. Like last month.
Wow.
Yeah, this is incredibly new. Yeah. So MJ is so new to the game, only having been announced as recent as this summer. So there's no more information just yet. But yeah, stay tuned for more developments in the Marvel Universe. And then of course that brings us to Mary Jane Watson, portrayed by Kirsten Dunst. First seen in Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man, last seen in Sam Raimi's 2007 Spider-Man 3. Let's talk about MJ.
Love her.
Is she your gal?
I mean, not right now because Zendaya is like amazing, but like, I mean, like, but it's, I mean, depends who you ask, but yeah, like I said, this was the first, I think, trilogy or movie in general that got me into superhero like movies.
Yeah.
Because I remember like Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, they were just like, especially 2.
Oh yeah.
It was like, whoa.
2 is
like,
still,
what is this?
Whew.
You know?
Yeah.
We obviously have, I mean, the iconic Spider-Man kiss in the first one in the rain.
Yeah.
You know, the upside down, like.
You know, apparently the one that they re-rendered for Into the Spider-Verse, you know how they put it in like the flashbacks?
Yeah.
Apparently that's directly rendered from Spider-Man
from the
1.
movie. I think some of those clips were, right?
Something, yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah,
They just,
like that movie touches like a, that's why I say it's like my favorite, you know, even though people will say like, no, well, ASM is probably the best one. It's like, you're probably right. But the nostalgia, like where the first trilogy takes me, like whenever I see it, I'm like, man, I was 2002, 2003. You're kind of like, wow. Yeah. Like Tobey Maguire is really that guy. Yeah. Kirsten Dunst, that girl. Yeah. You know?
It's very true. It was just like not even another time, but it was like all the right elements at the right time to audiences who had not yet been exposed to any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, sure, Batman was floating around. Other offbeat lesser known comic book characters were floating around. Yeah. But there was something about the fact that this horror genre known director was able to churn out a major like character franchise film and so seamlessly with a very unlikely actor. Let's be honest, because we've mentioned this in our Spider-Man episodes. Like, Tobey was more or less the underdog when it came to all this stuff. Like, people never imagined that, like, tiny little Tobey Maguire, like Leo DiCaprio's BFF, could be Spider-Man, and he showed them all, like, bro, I can do this. And he did, because he pumped up, he gained the weight, he got the muscle, and he still had the acting chops to, like,
he did that, and then
do
I think that's what got him Seabiscuit, right?
Yes, which he was phenomenal in.
And then you just go on and on. I remember seeing him in, like, he was amazing in The Great Gatsby, one of my favorite movies. He's also in that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal.
And Natalie Portman.
I forget the name of the movie, but I think he has like PTSD.
Brothers or something.
Brothers, something like that. He has like PTSD, and like he was amazing in that. So like
he's phenomenal. And then of course Kirsten as well. You know, she's come a long way. She's clearly been in the game for so long. I mean, Interview with the Vampire is like one of my favorite movies. And Bring It On. I mean,
oh my God,
and then Fargo. You know, like she's great across the board. So having them come together into that film and really like they really defined.
It's one of those defining roles for them. Yeah,
exactly. And so in the films, we're first introduced to her within the first 5 minutes of the film. Immediately, and she's kind of donning the homage to Gwen Stacy with the green jacket and the black headband.
Yes,
and they're in front of Empire University, because they're taking a tour.
Yeah,
from the science lab.
He like waves, and then Toby's like, "Oh, I'm sorry,
not me." And then which again, the lab scenes were filmed in the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles.
Woo!
Woo! So like that entire first film, it's interesting because he's so clearly in love with her. She's clearly a popular girl. She could probably get whoever she wants. She was dating Flash at the time, portrayed by Joe Manganiello. And then, of course, like there's the weird undertones of Harry kind of interested in her too.
Oh, I gotta rewatch this movie.
Yeah,
man.
I'm like fast forwarding it
through
my
good.
brain. Yeah, and then of course, you know, like Peter's pursuing her, ultimately leading to the Spider-Man thing and her having a crush on Spider-Man and not quite knowing like, oh, who is this guy? Because the kiss scene, the infamous kiss scene, of course, and then the kiss at the end she put it together like, oh my gosh.
So good.
He's Spider-Man. Yeah, it was just
so
incredibly well done.
good.
And of course the music by
Young Danny
Elfman, and then you know the entire suite of the first film and then going into the second film, like incredible, because then it's kind of interesting, you know, it's kind of like we said, she had a rough start trying to get into acting, right?
And now that
really
she's like
and
the star of this play. But Toby's trying to balance being a good boyfriend but also be Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she just then she gaslights him even more.
But she's dating John Jameson in the second film.
Yes.
And she gets engaged to John Jameson.
Yes.
Yeah. So they added that whole layer of drama to the two of them because what's a good superhero film without some, like love drama, right?
Yeah.
And then of course the last film kind of bringing them together in a much more mature way compared to the first film.
Yeah.
You know, they've already, is Pete still in college? Has he already passed college? I don't remember if he's in college anymore.
It's a great question.
Right?
I forget. Like, I forget. I just know he's working for the Bugle.
He's working at the Bugle in a suit. So I'm kind of like, I think he's past college at that point.
Maybe.
But of course, the unfortunate downfall of Harry Osborn and his drug addiction and then...
Avenge me! Yeah.
All that stuff. But a mostly happy ending for Pete and MJ at the end of that, where she finally accepts his proposal.
That is the first movie where I was like, oh, the hero's gonna die here. Oh. Like when Pete was getting pounded by Sandman when he was stuck on the
Yeah.
on that steel like rig.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
he might.
Yeah.
Like we might lose Spider-Man here. I was
Yeah.
like, this is the third movie. Like we
Yeah.
might lose him.
And then Venom on top of that.
Oh, I know.
The black suit.
Oh yeah.
It was like next level for sure. I remember.
Iconic.
Super duper iconic. Yeah, they had a great run as far as Kirsten Dunst is concerned. But there is another aspect to the MJ history, and that is in Michelle Jones Watson.
Woo!
Portrayed by, is she a wifey? Is she one of your
She
wifeys?
is now.
One of Jeffrey's wifeys, Zendaya.
Don't worry.
Amazing.
It's only like there's only like 3 main ones.
Gemma Chan, Elizabeth Olsen.
Okay, 4. It's Gemma Chan, Elizabeth Olsen,
Zendaya.
Haley, Zendaya.
Oh, Haley Steinfeld. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's great. But yeah, so Michelle Jones Watson. And so we first meet this MJ in John Watts' 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming. And then we last saw her in 2021. It's already been 2 years since Spider-Man No Way Home.
Whoa.
Which is
wow.
kind of trippy.
Oh my God.
2 freaking years.
Wow.
Almost 3. 2? Almost 2. Sorry. But
Yeah.
that's still,
Yeah.
it feels like it was last year.
It feels like it was
no,
like,
it was
ooh, this monumental
2 years ago.
like oh.
Yeah. And so, yeah, she was introduced immediately as Michelle. And we went the entire first film thinking she's this Michelle character.
Yeah.
Michelle. Who the heck is Michelle? And then at the very end, we get the bite.
It's like, look, Michelle, but my friends call me MJ. And I was like, whoa!
You should see her face.
I was like, whoa!
When they dropped that, I was like, oh my God. Like, and I said it out loud. I said it very much loud. I was like, did they really? What?
Was it like did we watch together?
No, I don't
think so.
know.
No,
I don't think
we
so.
weren't. Was it like a scream of like, oh my God, or like, oh my God?
It was a little bit of both. Admittedly, it was a little bit of both because I really liked Michelle. Like, I thought she was a great character.
Yeah.
But I was also kind of like, damn, that means like the traditional, quote unquote, the traditional version of the character was not going to transpire because you really do get a sense of how that character is very quickly. Like, she is not an aspiring actor. She's not like this bubbly, like fun-loving, extroverted girl. She's actually the opposite. She's very introverted, very not of the popular group. And I was like, this is an interesting take. And so I was excited in that I thought they had introduced a new character that was going to
entirely.
Yeah. But by looping it into MJ, I was like, okay, I get it. It's because it's a Pete and MJ. Like, fine, whatever. So I accepted it. But yeah, it was, I will say it was absolutely clever that they did it that way. You know what I mean? Like, because I get why people are like, oh man, I wanted Mary Jane. It's like, okay, I get it. But this is a great case of like, there can be an MJ and she doesn't have to be Mary Jane Watson.
Yeah.
And I think Zendaya obviously is incredible. She's
what if
incredible
Zendaya
actress.
dyes her hair red again?
She looked great with red hair.
Yeah.
And I thought she was going to have it in the movie because of that. But they didn't do it. So I was like, oh, interesting.
Or maybe for the second trilogy, it's...
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. This is just like a fever dream speaking.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Yeah.
it's like Pete is in college and he's
Yeah.
trying to win MJ over again,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
then he meets Gwen, and then like Gwen wants him,
Yeah.
but he wants MJ, but MJ doesn't want anything to do with Pete, but Pete
Yeah.
is like, oh my God, like we were so in love.
Yeah.
But then Gwen is like, but me.
No, man, it's going to be Felicia Hardy. I'm calling
Or
it.
I'm cool with that too.
Yeah, I think it'll
Oh
be
my
Felicia
God, I
Hardy.
love the black cat.
Oh, yep. That's my girl. That's my other girl.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Shout
kind
out to
of-
the Spider-Man game.
It's kind of like if you put the trio in front of me, right? I was like, love you, not you, love you. When it came to the three of them, I don't know. It's just a personal preference. But yeah, I don't think they're going to introduce her at all. I think they're just going to have Felicia and MJ if they do this. If they continue.
No Gwen.
No Gwen. I think the Gwen thing, that's a Miles Morales thing.
It's a Miles
They're
Morales.
gonna keep her there.
That's an ASM thing.
Yeah, like I think they might. Yeah, exactly. ASM. I think Emma Stone, like not to veer off into Gwentland, but I think Emma made such a profound like statement as that character.
Killed it.
They can't do it again. So they're like, okay, we'll stop going backwards. Let's just move forward and go into Felicia Hardyland. But yeah, so this MJ still had some similarities to Mary Jane Watson in that she came from a broken home. And you know, we're going to talk about Mary Jane's dad a little bit in a second, but MJ's dad apparently just dipped out when she was a child, when she was growing up as a baby, and it was just she and her mom, and he didn't re-enter the picture until about the high school age, and so that kind of contributes to why she is the way she is, I guess.
Yeah.
And she mentions it in the film. She's like, yeah, my dad, like, you know, it's not so great. And that's why she did not like being regarded as Watson, and why she liked to only
because that's her dad's,
because that's her dad's last name. So she only liked to be called Michelle Jones, aka MJ.
I mean, yeah, that was kind of like similar to Kirsten Dunst's.
Yeah, it's
a broken
very
home.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dad is an alcoholic, and you can tell they just don't get along. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how they did, after all, and especially in retrospect, really have the two of them like kind of be pretty parallel in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so many people ask, like, okay, well, what's the deal? Does that mean there's no Michelle Jones in the comics? And does she even have a counterpart if she's not Mary Jane? Well, the answer is yes and no, because I remember when it was revealed that Michelle Jones was MJ, I was like, oh, wait, you know, I'm curious if there is a comic book version, and there's a character that's, some people speculate that MJ is kind of based off of, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. And so on the comic book side of things, there is a character named Michelle Gonzalez, and Michelle with one L.
Weird.
Yeah. So while there's no direct correlation with Michelle Jones, Michelle Gonzalez was kind of the same. She's kind of a spitfire who kind of like, you know, goaded like Peter all the time.
Yeah.
And like, you know,
poor Pete.
She's always breaking his balls. And the scenario was essentially that Peter had a roommate, and this is all post-college. He's already a businessman and stuff. He had a roommate. That roommate had a sister, and that was Michelle. And she came to live with them for a little bit, just to kind of save money on bills and watch her brother and stuff. Because the brother was an NYPD officer, ironically enough. So an NYPD officer in the same apartment as Spider-Man. And then you throw a sister in it. It kind of made situations
weird.
Yeah, super weird.
Awkward.
So long story, not so short. The two eventually had a one-night stand, and then she moved out. So it didn't quite end up like Michelle Jones, but if you're gonna pick anybody, she might be a little bit of that mix. And so from that, we'll go into family, friends, and affiliations. And easily said, many of MJ's friends have also become love interests. So, you know, obviously it makes for good drama. So we're just going to discuss a couple of her friends, but mostly her family, starting with Philip and Madeline Watson, who are her parents. Mm-hmm. Again, Philip was a teacher. They moved around quite a bit as a result for whatever reason. And then somewhere down the line, her parents split. And so MJ, her mom, and her older sister all stuck together while the father went elsewhere. And they kept on sort of the tradition of moving from place to place. And at one point, they ended up at Aunt Anna's place, Anna Watson's place. And she lived next to May and Ben Parker.
Wow.
Yeah. And so somewhere down the line, MJ's mom passes away. And then that's the very moment that MJ really sought out to pursue her dream of being an actor. Whereas in the cinematic universe side, so we do meet Philip Watson. He's the guy portrayed by Tim DeZarn in the original Spider-Man, like you mentioned. He's like a small piece of that film. He comes out in a wife beater. Or a shirt. They call it an A shirt now.
Oh.
Yeah, he comes out in an A shirt, and he's like clearly drunk.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what he says to her, but he's like garbling. He's like yelling at her. And you only see him once more in the rest of the trilogy, but he's
Pretty much,
mentioned
yeah.
it a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so again, needless to say, in cinematic universe, he's also quite, I don't know, he's pretty abusive. And he, hardly, either of them hardly had any film counterparts. Madeline is never shown on screen at all. And again, Philip is only in it for those few seconds.
Yeah.
And then as for Michelle, we just get the oral backstory. She lives with her mom. Her father wasn't in her life, and that was it. That they don't really embellish on her parents at all. And so in the comic books, MJ does have an older sister named Gail. Pretty much, she's just older sister, single mom, and she hasn't had the best of luck. She's been in prison. She's been blamed for crimes, what have you. There's not much to her else. Otherwise, they don't really show her at all. No MCU counterpart. Neither does Aunt Anna, who is, again, she's Aunt May's best friend and partially the reason that Peter and MJ get together at all.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting because, they don't really introduce a lot of Aunt May's peripheral characters, right?
No,
She's
really,
just Aunt May.
She's just Aunt May.
Yeah. And then, none of them, huh? Even all three of them, of course, portrayed by Rosemary Harris, who, happy belated birthday. She just turned 95.
Yes.
And then Sally Fields in the Andrew Garfield films. And then, of course, Marissa Tomei.
Marissa Tomei,
man. Fine wine. And so for Aunt May in the comics, there's nothing super duper outstanding between Mary Jane and Aunt May. It is exactly what you would expect. They have interactions and stuff. But she has played relatively significant parts in their story. One of which, and I know you know about this one, is the 2007's One More Day storyline. Do you remember what this one was about?
One More Day. Oh my gosh.
And so this is one where Spider-Man or Peter Parker, I don't remember which one he was at the time, is going about his business. A sniper tried to kill him.
Yes.
And they hit Aunt May.
Yes.
And so she's about to die. And then Mephisto,
of course,
comes into the picture and he's like, "Do you want a bargain?"
Always the worst friggin' deal
and
the world.
so Spidey was like, "If you want my soul, you could save it." And he's like, "Oh no, I want something better." And so he bargains for Peter and MJ's love, which is apparently 1 in a million per generation.
That's dark.
Super duper dark. And so Peter and MJ inevitably take the deal. And at the cost of their future, the cost of their future children, everything. And so that's the biggest. I mean, Aunt May has come to close to death 500 times in the comics, but this is the most crucial one because they really significantly it's a very, very emotional arc. It's I think it's only 4 or 7 issues long.
Oh wow, okay.
But it's the way that J. Michael Straczynski wrote it was so heartbreaking because they really do realize they love each other so much that, and Mary Jane almost kind of questions him. She's like, "Is it time to let her go?" And Peter's not ready.
Damn.
So he chose Aunt May over MJ and their future, essentially. And MJ accepts it, but they're both also so confident
that they're gonna fall
that
for
they'll
each
fall
other.
for each other again, which is something that's kind of you kind of wonder is MJ and Tom Holland's
That's kind
Peter,
of yeah,
right?
So you're saying Mephisto is gonna finally make his appearance?
I mean, that would be kind of the way to bring him out, right? How could he? Yeah, but they have that again. They have that sort of similarity in that it's always about their relationship. It's always about the love, the connection that these two have. And so again, Aunt May in the films, she's pretty much a support system. Doesn't have as much of a crazy relationship with MJ in either one of them, really. She's like, "Oh dear, would you like some cupcakes?" Whatever the heck she says, and that's about it in the first 3 films. And then MJ, Marissa Tomei, and Zendaya don't really have anything other than the fact that she's constantly battling with the fact that, oh my gosh, is my nephew having sex? Which is kind of funny.
That was pretty funny.
I like that. Those scenes are amazing.
That was funny.
Yeah. So they don't really cross over too hard in the films, at least not yet. And then there's Ned Leeds. Not too much to say on the comic book side, other than MJ was the maid of honor when he married Betty Brant in the comics. So that's also something that's consistent with the films, is that Ned and Betty were together in the Tom Holland films as well. And then we haven't spoken too much about Ned, that much in general, but lest we forget, he's the Hobgoblin in the comics.
True.
So we could discuss him, but they just don't have that much in common. And of course, Ned Leeds, portrayed by Jacob Batalon in the films. Again, another support system in MJ's life. The three of them are like three musketeers. Not much to say otherwise, but they do have a great relationship. And then there's Gwen Stacy. We've talked about Gwen at length in 2 episodes and then even more. But in the comics, yeah, they were rivals. They were very, for lack of a better word, catty with one another.
They're besties. What are you talking about?
But they were besties. It's kind of weird how their dynamic was, because MJ is actually even the one who admitted, like, no, she was my best friend. But that didn't stop her from always saying, like, are you still dating Peter? Because I could date Peter.
I would love to see that interaction.
I do too. I would love to see like a very, very traditional, but almost, like in a 50s, 60s sense spirit of things. But yeah, if you want to hear more about Gwen and more about MJ and Gwen, check out episodes 23 and 47 for our Gwen Stacy 1 and 2. And then, of course, in the cinematic universe, Gwen Stacy portrayed by Bryce Dallas Howard and then Emma Stone.
I forget about that. I forget about the Bryce one, man. Because it's so quick.
Yeah.
But like, oh, wow.
Yeah. But also, I think it's also that she was just so different.
Yes.
She was portrayed very differently.
She was.
Yeah, and so, and again, we've discussed this in the Gwen Stacy episodes, but we only really got to see these two on screen in Spider-Man 3, where Gwen was quite different. She was a fax machine model, and she was very peppy, and she was rich, and it just gave a different vibe than the Emma Stone version, which I felt was more accurate in a modern day sense. But that all said, I mean, again, MJ has had a lot of friends, but a lot of those friends are also love interests.
Of course. What good is a story without a love interest?
So first on the list that we'll actually talk about, Flash Thompson. In the comics, it's hardly a notable love affair for MJ, but definitely one that existed early in the college years. Because you do have to remember, in the comics, Pete and MJ didn't meet until they were in college. Versus...
It's all been high school.
All cinematic, yeah. They meet in high school. The closest we've gotten is the Maguire ones when they're already in college. Well, she doesn't even go to college, I don't think. I think she just straight went to acting. So
what about Garfield's? Because the graduation, right? Oh,
but she's not there.
My God.
Yeah.
I'm getting girls mixed up.
There's no MJ.
Gosh.
Yeah, not officially at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, so not much with Flash Thompson in the comics. But again, like we mentioned before, portrayed by Joe Manganiello and then Chris Zilka, then most recently Tony Revolori.
So funny.
In the films. And so again, not much to say. They've kind of always had that weird dynamic where it's like, sure, they're friends, but yeah, I feel like the Kirsten Dunst MJ was actually kind of dating Flash Thompson.
Yes, that one's seen more real.
Yeah, yeah, something.
Yeah.
Even if he was only in it for so long. What did she say? Leave him alone, Flash. Right?
That was good. Yeah, that was good.
You could see the face that she makes.
Leave him alone, Flash.
Leave him alone. The head toss. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, there's Harry Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. So during the old days, the Fab Four, as we would call them, they used to all double date. So it would be Pete and Gwen, and then Harry and MJ, which was kind of weird because they were dating but not dating, but dating but not dating. It was kind of just like, well, why not?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was again on MJ's end to make Peter jealous because he was so involved with Gwen that she was like, I'll do anything just to get some attention. But if in the comics, very similarly to the cinematic universe, after Norman Osborn dies, Harry spiraled, and he did veer off into a very taboo world where he dabbled in drugs, and it was a bad era for the character. And he almost killed Pete and MJ in the comics as the Green Goblin many times. But after MJ found out and they were officially dating, she was like, nope, not going to do this anymore. Problematic. Red flag. Whereas it was kind of the same in the films. Like, they were getting close, and then she just kind of like, after he started to get all crazy and the apple pie weirdness. I will never forget James Franco for that. It's like, so how's your pie? What does he say? Delicious or something.
Oh, yeah.
So no, he goes, so good.
Oh my God.
It's so creepy. It's
that was
so
like, I
creepy.
remember watching that movie and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I haven't seen Spider-Man 3 in so long.
Yeah.
But I just remember like the dynamic between MJ and Harry was like not good.
Yeah.
It was not, not that it was good with anybody, with him and anybody really. But yeah, again, portrayed by James Franco and then Dane DeHaan in Andrew Garfield's films. Again, two very different versions of the character in some sense, but they had the same basis, I guess, in that they were the rich son and only son of Mr. Norman Osborn. And then that leaves John
Jingleheimer Schmidt.
John Jameson. In the comics, absolutely no romantic relationship whatsoever. He was also the man-wolf. Let me just say.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a werewolf in the comics. Whereas in the film, he is only in one film, portrayed by Daniel Gillies in Spider-Man 2. And as iconic as ever, J. Jonah Jameson's my son, the astronaut.
Big party for an American hero. My son, the astronaut.
My son. That's good. That was good. That was good. That was good.
It's so funny.
That was really good, actually.
My son, the astronaut. Yeah, it's so he's the successful option available to MJ that is a successful adult in sorts. And he's like a very different contrast compared to Peter.
Yes.
Peter's running around trying to deliver pizza to
pizza time.
To what's her face? The Deschanel. Her sister. Yeah, Emily Deschanel.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then failing, and then, barely making rent. And he won't pay his rent till they fix that damn door.
You'll get this rent when you fix this damn door.
And then, you have John Jameson is polished, and he's in the space program. He's an astronaut. And
Dude,
he's
it's so good. Damn. That's so good.
I swear. Oh, God. Oh, my God.
It's like way better than mine, and I've done it like multiple times on this pod.
I don't think J.K. Simmons understands how much he's affected us. He's so truly iconic.
Let me tell you, he's a menace, this Spider-Man.
See, I can't do that one.
I can't even.
I can't do that one.
It sounds like I'm forced. But it's so God. It's so good. He's a menace. Spider-Man front page number 4.
I swear.
Friend or foe?
Yeah. We have to cover him sometimes because I rewatched just to find the astronaut line. I rewatched like 5 minutes of J. Jonah Jameson, and he's so funny, especially with Ted Raimi, because Ted Raimi is his office assistant. Right?
Oh yeah,
and he would come as like, JJ, we need to change the pages on. No, get me pictures of Spider-Man.
It's so
Like, man. Jeffrey's dying.
Oh, it's so good. Oh,
That might be my best one yet. That might be my best voice
oh
yet.
God, it's so good.
God.
Oh, I love
There's
it.
just something to it, right?
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, so John Jameson had all of 2 scenes in the film.
Yeah.
One of which was, maybe 3. One of which was him escorting MJ somewhere, him watching her at her play,
Was that it?
and then him being ditched at the altar. Because they were supposed to get married.
Right.
And then that whole montage of her giggling in slow motion in her wedding dress.
Oh, I gotta watch this trilogy again.
Right? Like, it's like so wild.
Oh,
it's
man.
It's so like in my brain. And like the glossy like glow.
So
it's so
funny.
golden. God. And then just me standing in your doorway.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Right. And so that's all he had in the films. But it was, again, an interesting choice because, again, no correlation in the comics. They were just like, let's bring in somebody interesting. And it was J. Jonah Jameson's son.
Oh God, I have Bruce Willis, but it hurts.
I'm so sorry.
But it's fine. It's worth it. Oh, it's so good. Oh God.
God. And then, of course, that brings us to Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
So this is particularly interesting because in the comics, it's ultimately Gwen's death that plays the catalyst, right? That really guided MJ to Peter. So they've had this really long, like, it's literally issue 25 until 121.
Yeah.
That there's a spectacle of Gwen versus MJ. And so that's 4 or 5 years worth easily of comic book lore that these two are going at it trying to get to this guy. And so the minute that Gwen dies, you see a transformation not only in Peter but also MJ. And so MJ was very, again, extroverted, party girl, loved to be the focus of attention. And so I've mentioned this, I think, in our Peter Parker part 2, is that when Peter is grieving over the loss of Gwen,
Yeah.
MJ is there with him and she's trying to console him, and he completely is like, just go away.
Oh my God.
He's like, get away from, like, you didn't even like her. You always made fun of her. You didn't accept, like, he was really sticking it to her. Like, everything that he had thought of her
Yeah.
finally came out at that moment. And so MJ was clearly like rattled by it. But as her hand is like on the doorknob and she's going to leave, instead of opening it, she closes it, like opening it more. She closes it and she decides to stay, and she just quietly grieves with him, just to be there with him. And so that point on, she's definitely more serious and she's more poised, and she's more of the character that even in the films, at least Kirsten Dunst, you start to see like, this is who the character is. Like like the doorway on. That's the MJ in the comics. Like, she's much more serious, and she considers other people more than herself. Finally.
It's like 3 movies, but here we are.
That's the character. That's the character. You know, it takes a lot to get her to that point. And in the comics, unfortunately, it was at the expense of her best friend, so to speak. And so in the comics, as the two got more serious, Peter does eventually propose to her. She says no the first time. He did like a Cracker Jack box with the ring inside, and she's like, no. And then he finally does it again later on down the line, and she finally accepts. And then they get married like on the steps of, I forgot, some government building, and her uncle is like officiating the wedding. But fun fact, despite her essentially knowing Peter since he was Spider-Man, and knowing that Peter was Spider-Man from the get-go, it's not the knowledge of her knowing that Peter and Spider-Man are the same person isn't revealed until Amazing Spider-Man 257, released in 1984.
Whoa.
20 years after her debut.
That's
20
crazy.
freaking years. So, which is essentially 4 or 5 years in their lifetime.
Yeah.
But imagine that she
whole
goes
time,
that entire
yeah.
time, because the whole shtick is that it's kind of funny because it's kind of like what I think it was Doc Ock. Doc Ock figured it out the same way. You see Peter Parker walk in, but you see Spider-Man walk out. So MJ, living next door, saw Peter come home frantically one day, but saw Spider-Man leave the window, and she was like, oh, he's Spider-Man. So they kept it going for 20 years, and she developed a crush on Spider-Man, knowing that Peter was like, oh, she likes Spider-Man. What do I do? But I can't put her in danger.
It's right.
Yeah.
It's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. I have to protect her. I can't. Great power, responsibility.
Blah, blah,
blah,
blah.
blah, blah, blah. And so it didn't occur in the comics until 20 years later that, like, hey, by the way, I know it's you. And so I don't even remember.
It's like Zendaya's MJ.
I was about to say, when does Zendaya say? Because I know at the very end of number one.
It's in Far From Home.
It's Far From Home. So the second one, yeah, because at the end of number one, you almost think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
She's like, why are you in a rush, Peter?
Yeah.
Where are you going, Peter?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And then,
She's so good.
Yeah, and then the second movie, Pete's like, MJ, I have to tell you something. Oh, that you're Spider-Man? He's, what?
Yeah.
What? Oh, I know. I know you're Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's like, what? What?
Freaking Tom Holland, I swear. Oh my gosh. Sidebar, related but not related. Did you see the footage of them at the Taylor Swift show? Or Beyonce show?
Yes. Yes.
They're
Goated.
so cute.
I am Tom.
They're
I'd be Tom Holland too if I was dating Zendaya.
They're so cute.
I'd be like, ooh, who are they screaming for? Like, is it me? Oh shoot, it
That
is
was
me.
her. Oh yeah. Following her around, recording everybody.
Same.
So cute. But yeah, so it was very interesting that she kind of just says it, because I feel like Mary Jane didn't really. How did it? Oh yeah, she kind of realizes because of the kiss, but she doesn't. I don't remember how she finds out.
Ooh, I forget.
Yeah, I don't remember that part. It has to be. Oh yes, I remember now, because when Doc Ock had them all
over.
Yeah, and he had Aunt May. And MJ was in there, and the explosion was about to go out. No, maybe it's just MJ and Peter. And the explosion was going to happen, and Pete takes his mask off, and he turns around, and MJ's like, "Oh my gosh, it's you!" And I remember
Was this this is the second one.
in the
Doc
second
Ock.
one, yes.
Oh yeah.
Doc
When
Ock.
the thing's about to fall.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey.
And then he does the scream too.
Oh yeah. He's like, this is kind of heavy.
Yeah.
And he's like, ah!
Yeah.
I can't even do it. Oh gosh.
But the funny thing, I mean, it's not funny, but the reason why I remember that scene so distinctly is because they did a cinematic error where they must have filmed it one mirror version.
Yeah.
Because Tobey Maguire has a very distinct thing under his eye.
Uh-huh.
And you can tell it's flipped because it's on the opposite side. And that's how I remember that scene. Is because it's ingrained in my memory
The
because
more you
of
know.
that, right? They did in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 as well. But yeah, that's when she finds out, and so she didn't allude as hard as Michelle Jones did. Michelle Jones was like too smart. She knew what was happening. But I have to ask, which duo's dynamic did you like more?
Oof. Well, I mean, Toby and Kirsten are just like iconic. But then now you rewatch it, like I said at the top of the show, it's very gaslighty. I mean, you have Tom and Zendaya, and they're an actual couple now.
Yeah.
And
and they're still a couple.
That's the most important part.
Yeah. I don't remember how long Emma and Andrew were together.
They definitely dated.
I wanted to say
obviously.
7.
Yeah.
So
it's like crazy.
They got to beat 7.
Yeah. I might have to just slide out Tom and Zendaya just a little bit more over, just because I know it's like not like the dynamic we're used to. You're used to seeing like
Sure.
a redhead and
Yeah.
whatever. But like I think other than their dynamic, their team, they work together instead of like Zendaya gaslighting Tom. So
Only a little bit, but
a little bit, but like in a playful
it's a very
way.
different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different vibe for sure. Yeah. I don't know because it would be easy to say that you treat them as two different couples because they technically are. But I don't know. Maybe I would say the same actually because it is very endearing, right?
Yes.
And I guess that was a strong point because me, I'm like, put Peter Parker in college already. But
it'll happen.
The strength of having him in high school and making it very puppy love-ish is something that they would not have gotten if they aged them up and put them in adult scenarios. Because it's like you said, like to see the MJ versus Gwen thing would be really interesting and kind of fun in a weird way.
Yeah.
But it loses the charm that Tom Holland's films has.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him lovable as a character because he is so endearing and awkward and he hasn't quite found his footing, but has enough of it to get him through things. But of course, obviously, and then by the next film, knock on wood, he will be so seasoned. Like it'll be true like peak Spider-Man. Like I high key want to see that. And I do want to, and he'll finally be in college. But they did it the right way. They didn't fast forward like they did in the first film.
Yeah.
In the first Andrew Garfield film, or second one, where they just kind of, he's in college now. Like, Hail Mary.
We'll get it. You'll get your wish, Dai. You'll get your wish.
I got it. But there is one more love interest before we move on. And it is a character named Paul Rabin. And so this is another very, very new facet of Mary Jane. A complicated story that began in an arc known as Marked. And so long story short, the crew, this is like Peter and co, encountered this Mayan god of mischief, Wayeb or Wayep. And then Peter and MJ were transported to an alternate dimension where they met a man named Paul. And so there's this whole thing where they're battling the god. Pete gets transported back to Earth 616. MJ is stuck in that alternate universe. And then, like all things, she and Paul fall in love. So they get married and they adopt two children named Owen and Romy. And then basically ish goes down. Like Paul ends up being the son of the emissary that's responsible for conjuring Wayeb. They go to battle. MJ debuts these powers. So she has these powers. She ends up getting powers in the comics. It's very interesting. But this is the same story that was linked to the whole Kamala Khan died.
Oh.
So this is where she died.
Oh my god.
It's in this storyline. And
Yikes.
so, yeah, it's packed. It's like really packed to the gills. And then the children are erased from existence right before Paul's eyes. So it's this big old bundle of drama. If you want to read it, please go read it. Go ahead. People hate it. Like capital H hate it. Because once again, it's like, I don't know if they hate it because of they're splitting up MJ and Peter or the fact that MJ had somebody else, but it was not popular. Not a popular story.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And so, of course, Paul Rabin, he's way too new to have an MCU counterpart. So, but I mean, God knows. Who knows if we'll see him in the future. And so then we'll move on to notable adversaries. So full disclosure, she's like many of the other characters that get caught in the crosshairs of main heroes' adversaries. But by proxy, MJ has had conflict with practically everyone in Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, including, but hardly limited to, the Sinister Six, Superior Spider-Man, that's always a fun one, Paper Doll, and even some of Iron Man's enemies. MJ has this it was a more modern storyline introduced, I want to say, in the late 10s. And she actually began working at Stark Industries.
Wow.
She was basically the new Pepper Potts.
Oh.
Yeah, because the scenario was that MJ became like a successful club owner at one point, named the club Jackpot. Shock.
Wow. Oh my God. I wonder
Jackpot.
why.
Oh my God. Yeah. Who would have known? And so in the midst of some battle, Iron Man accidentally blew it up.
Of course.
And so as a peace offering, he was like, how about I give you a job? And she declined it at first, but she inevitably took it because the money was too good, obviously.
Of course.
And then, of course, you know, she and Tony kind of...
Gross.
Yes, but no. Yes, but no.
But sure.
Yeah. And so the same goes for the film adaptations as far as the villains go. And, you know, of course, very quickly she encountered the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, Venom, Green Goblin 2, Vulture, Mysterio, and Electro in the films. Yeah, is that it for the... Yeah, that's everybody. Holy smokes. But then, of course, in the comics, there's also Felicia Hardy. But we need not go there. They do also have a comic book title, a short series called Black Cat and Mary Jane, so go get you some. It's interesting. And so I didn't really want to talk about Felicia too much. Like, we don't even have an MCU Felicia.
Yeah, I need more of her, though. But I love her in the game.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Oh, that one's like the best one. Like, trust me. Best Felicia Hardy
So
there
good.
is. Best.
It's like weirdly attractive, too.
I mean, she's great. She's
I mean,
great.
that joke in like in the games where it's like, where Pete's like, damn, do I have a kid with you?
I know.
I was like, damn, Pete.
Well, it said everything about Peter Parker. Like, oh, really, Peter Parker? Is that how you go?
I was like, dang, you got MJ like locked down, but you were messing around with Felicia?
The older girl.
Wow.
And so, again, like, I don't know that we discussed her too much in the Peter ones because there was, again, we've had Felicity Jones as Felicia in Amazing Spider-Man, but we don't have a proper Felicia Hardy, so we don't ever really talk about her that much. But that is so iconic, like the fact that that's how she is.
I love.
She's
I'm
manipulative.
I'm glad I got that DLC.
It's the best thing.
Yeah.
That was the most enjoyable.
It was so
one for me.
fun.
It was so good.
So fun. I was like this. I was like the sexual tension
It's
is
palpable.
so high. You can cut this with a dull knife.
Yeah, legit. I was like, bro. And did they update his face? Like, if you were to play the DLC now?
That is a great. But I think he's mostly.
But you don't even see.
No, he's
yeah.
mostly talked to Felicia in
Mask.
in
right?
Mask. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Because that would be weird. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, loved that DLC. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I could use a little more Felicia Hardy. We'll see if Sydney Sweeney ends up being the character.
Didn't they say like what character she was?
Did they?
They did.
Did they?
I think so.
Oh, because they showed pictures of her being all nerded up and stuff.
Yeah.
Did they? Did they really though? Because this is what I don't trust them because they pulled the same card with Zendaya and they're like, she's not MJ, or they said she's not Mary Jane, but of course she technically true, but she was still MJ.
She said it says that she'll be debuting as Spider-Woman.
Oh, so she's Jessica Drew? Maybe? Weird. I don't know about that. Or no, she can't possibly be the other one. No, that's
I guess
weird.
we'll find out.
Guess we'll find out. But anyway, thanks. I hate it. She would have been. Yeah, she would have been a better Felicia Hardy. But I do kind of believe that she would be Spider-Woman first. But again, maybe one day we'll actually be able to talk about Felicia Hardy at length. Until then, we have comics.
Wow. Great reflexes.
And so as far as aesthetic goes, 2 words. Redhead.
Yes, sir.
Is that one word or 2?
Redhead?
No, actually.
I think it's 2.
I think it's 2.
That's
Yeah,
great.
whatever.
That's a great question.
So she's always had a very specific vibe about her. MJ's very casual. She's pretty easygoing. They always wanted to depict her as a wild girl. You know?
Sure.
And then like Gwen was always the proper one. It's like, okay, we get it. We get it. We get it.
Speak your truth, Dai.
I know. But thankfully they've kind of like, especially with the Tony Stark era,
Yeah.
they really polished her up and like, it's like, just let go of your teenage fantasy boys. Let the woman,
Sure.
become a woman. And so, of course, in the films, MJ kind of fit the bill of the casual sort of relaxed look. And then they even gave her, again, the homage colors to Gwen Stacy, but graduated her to more of her own style very quickly. And then MJ as well. She's pretty casual all the time. Like, she only got fancy once when she wore a dress and she felt like a real girl. Zendaya played that very well. She was very tomboy, which was interesting. But, you know, in overall, like, MJ, yeah, if you were to kind of showcase her, she is kind of like more of a, I don't want to say tomboy, but she's a guy's girl.
Yeah.
If you will. And then again, Jackpot is so new, but they just debuted her official outfit, which I put in our doc.
I see.
Jeff, yeah. And so, yeah, the colors are very much like the personality with the gold accents. She's fiery red. She's got a bit of, you know, like power, passion, love look to her with a hint of, you know, drip, glimmer.
Yeah.
Designed by artist Humberto Ramos, who is the co-creator of Silk, and he's a long-standing Spider-Man artist. And the suit, ironically enough, is given to her by Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat.
Wow.
In their series. But yeah, we'll talk about more about Jackpot next, because powers and paraphernalia. You know, again, for most of her canonical history, MJ has not had powers whatsoever, conducting as a natural human being, you know, even for comics. However, because every character gets some sort of upgrade at some point to remain relevant, MJ is officially embarking in a new territory as Jackpot, even wielding this like techno wristwatch thing. So it's like different from the picture above. It started as like a wristlet that had like a thing across the knuckles. And it was like a really it was like a 1.0 version that like Tony would make, right? And so she happened upon this apparatus. I think it's in the alternate universe. I'm not sure. I don't remember. And so basically, once it's triggered,
yeah,
a hologram pops up in the fashion of a slot machine. And it goes, ding, ding,
of
ding.
course.
Jackpot. Yeah.
You died.
They're really harping on it. And so when the mechanism is triggered,
yeah,
it renders a random power. So she can't even control what power she gets. So it's a randomizer. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
though.
one day she might get like the power of gravity. The next day she might be a pile of sludge. The next day she could be Spider-Man. It's just on account of the wristlet.
Yeah.
So still new. Still wondering where that's going to go, wondering how long it'll stay. We'll know shortly, I'm sure. Depends how successful it is. But in the meanwhile, in the films, she is completely normal. Aside the fact we're in Across the Spider-Verse, we do see the variant of Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Who is Spinneret. And we'll talk about her in a second. But first, are you ready for your one and only?
No.
Pop quiz.
Oh my gosh.
This is a fun one. So, you know, we've talked about variants that come from Spider-Ham's universe.
Okay.
Like Penguin Stacy and Mooster Fantastic and stuff like that.
Damn it.
Peter
okay.
Porker.
I see where this is going.
This is multiple choice. Which of the following is not a real variant?
Not a real variant. I always get these wrong. Okay.
Of MJ in the animal universes. Is it?
How many are there? Four?
There's 4. Mary Crane Watso.
Sure.
Mary Jane Walrussen.
Okay.
Mary Jane Water Buffalo. Or Mary Jane Watsar.
What's our?
Like a dinosaur.
Oh my god.
Dinosaur.
Nyar.
I rewatched like Jurassic Park for the 30th anniversary in theaters.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wow, Jeff Goldblum releases dinosaur different. And he's like, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. So
Mary Crane Watson.
Mary Crane Watso.
Mary Jane
Walrussen.
Walrussen.
Mary Jane Water Buffalo.
Yeah.
or Mary Jane Watsar. They're all so crazy. Like
like someone.
they all sound awful.
Someone wrote those options down on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we gonna give Mary Jane's alter ego in animal universe?
You're right.
My gosh. Mary Crane Watso? What the hell? Like, why'd you have to change Watso? Like, couldn't it just be Watson?
Because I think it's a bird thing. Because crane also.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I guess. It would have been fine with just Crane.
Crane. Oh, yeah, as I know. That's what I thought too. Mary Crane.
Mary Jane Walrison?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess. Water buffalo gets me because they're like, screw it, like just water buffalo.
Yeah. Well, I think also they wanted to draw, like maybe.
Like her as a water buffalo.
If you think of how they would interpret each version.
And the last one was Mary Jane.
Watsar.
I feel like, dude, like, oh God, the dinosaur one is like so lazy. Just Watsar.
I would say the water buffalo one was
That
the
one,
most
I mean, they're
lazy.
both equally as lazy.
Yeah.
Watsar.
Yeah.
Water buffalo.
Yeah. Final answer.
My gut says water buffalo, just because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
all right, you didn't even like try.
That is incorrect.
I never get any of these.
That's actually the Mary Crane Watsow, Mary Jane Water Buffalo, and Mary Jane Watsar are all real characters.
It's the walrus.
It's the walrusin one.
Should have known because there's no T in it.
It was right there though. Like they could have done that, but instead they did water buffalo. I don't know.
These
But
guys
yeah.
are insane.
So it's that's funny. So those are three variants of Mary Jane Watson. However, as I previously mentioned, there's the Mary Jane of Earth 18119. And in this Earth, Mary Jane and Peter got married and more importantly, remained married and had a daughter named Annie. And so one of the things that, I mean, we didn't talk about it because it's just so convoluted and it happens all the time. But, you know, a big portion of Pete and MJ's lives in the comics is that they have seen flickers of their future life, right? And they have met their future daughter in certain scenarios. And this is Mayday Parker.
Yeah.
Who's obviously named after Aunt May. And so she also becomes a Spider Girl in her own future. I mean, maybe that's the character that Sydney Sweeney is playing. Who knows? But you know, in very many timelines, it's always that they're trying to get pregnant, but it doesn't work out. She loses the child or something happens to decimate the future of their children. And so the same is consistent with even Owen and Romy, you know, with Paul. Like she has children, she's a great mother, and then they just disappear into the ether. And so in Earth 18119, thankfully, they successfully have and raised this child, Annie, who is obviously named after Aunt Anna. And she takes on the helm as a spider child as well. And she's known as Spiderling. And so the three of them are like a superhero family. And MJ takes on the moniker Spinneret. And so her powers, she actually had some sort of powers in that universe. They were based on mimicry, so she could copy Peter's powers.
Yeah.
And technically be able to be Spider-Woman. But it came with kind of a defect because as long as she's mimicking him, she's depowering him. So he could be like at 99% power and MJ's at whatever, you know, she's at baseline.
Yeah.
And the longer she stays powered, the more that she's depowering Peter. So she gets more powerful, but Peter starts to lose his. So that was a huge thing in the books. That was their dynamic. And then, of course, the kid factor. It's cute. I mean, wasn't for me, but it was cute. And then she even took on the Venom symbiote in that universe, which made her vulnerable to sonic waves and heat and stuff, the same as it would anywhere else. And then, of course, another version that's pretty prominent is the video game version, Sony's Spider-Man gaming universe, Earth 1048, where she's voiced by Laura Bailey. Very prominent voice actor. And in that game, she's an investigative journalist for the Daily Bugle. And we'll get to see more of her very soon.
Yes.
Next month,
Next
actually.
month.
Yeah.
I'm literally waiting for that game.
I'm going to try and finish it before I go to New York, but I don't know how feasible that is.
Like, you're going to try to 100% it? Or just the story mode?
I'm gonna try and story mode it because I don't want people to ruin it for me. You know what I mean?
It's true.
But I don't know. I am kind of I'd like to complete it as I go. So
Same.
We'll see.
When I have time, I'll do it.
Yeah, because I don't think it'll get spoiled too hard. Like, whatever, it's fine. Like, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll probably see more of MJ there. They've also kind of matured her face, I guess, in that game. So we'll see where that pans out. But personally speaking, one of the most impressionable variants for Mary Jane is once again the animated version. So honorable mention for the MJ in the Spider-Man animated universe from the 90s, voiced by Sarah Ballantyne. She's pretty true to the comic version for the most part. She was very, very prominent for me because like that was aside the comics here and there, the animated series was so focused on Mary Jane. Like, I think Gwen was maybe in 2-3 episodes, but MJ was it. Like, she was the girl.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of MJ in every episode, and I liked her. She was pretty sassy, but again, she's pretty true to the comics too. And then of course there is Spider-Man Miles Morales animated universe version of Mary Jane, Earth 1610B, mostly, where she's voiced by Zoe Kravitz.
Wow.
Which I feel like people forget that's Zoe Kravitz. And again, she has a variety of the facets that are pretty much an homage to the classic MJ, as well as some newer nuances. And again, the one that we see the most is the one that has a child with Peter B. Parker, who I love. I love that one. I love them. Like those two, like that's one of my favorite Peter and MJs for sure. And then Almost Was. So this is an interesting one because we've avoided talking about her surprisingly throughout the entire show. I thought for sure you would bring her up, but you didn't. And so I'm glad because we can talk about her now. But first, before we get into what I was referring to, when it came to Tobey Maguire's trilogy, apparently filmmakers approached Kate Hudson and offered her the part, but she already committed to filming a film called The Four Feathers. I don't know that film. Clearly, she made the wrong decision.
Maybe.
Although now I'm trying to imagine Kate Hudson in Kirsten Dunst, and I can't do it.
When you just play an iconic role,
can't do it. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else could be that role.
And then aside Kate Hudson, Kate Bosworth auditioned for the role but did not get the part. And then last but not least, Elizabeth Banks also auditioned but had apparently aged out of the role. Jeez. So instead, she landed the role of Betty Brant. And so she's Miss Brant.
So good. Damn. I feel like, oh my God, I should have photos right now. I'm so sorry.
It's 20 years of being exposed to J.K. Simmons, man. And so she thankfully landed another role because she was so good, and Sam wanted to make sure she was in the film. And then the big one. So for the Andrew Garfield sequels, Shailene Woodley was cast and filmed in the role of Mary Jane, but was ultimately cut from the final film in Amazing Spider-Man 2 because filmmakers decided there were too many characters in the film. Shock, because there was like 25.
That's what I'm saying.
They were like Rhino, Gwen, Electro, Scorpion, Felicity Jones, Goblin, kind of Norman Osborn too. And then they talked about, there was Aunt May, of course.
That's crazy.
There was so much. And so rightfully so. They unfortunately had to make the cut, and she was one of them. But they wanted to shift her to the third film. Of course, it got canned, and we got Tom Holland instead. So I think we lucked out, personally speaking. I'd like to leave that Andrew with the Gwen world. I think they deserve that much.
Yeah.
But for those who are interested, I did find a clip which is a montage of all the photos that were taken of Shailene Woodley as MJ.
Yeah.
And then also has some of the paparazzi footage of her filming with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. So if you want to watch that, I have a link. But yeah, I'll put that in the show notes for those at home. And then for the future of the character in the MCU, Jeff, what do you think?
I don't know. I know we talked about this a couple times, like about when the second Tom Holland trilogy happens.
Yeah.
It's like, do we want to see even MJ in that one?
Yeah.
Or are we just like, you know what? Obviously,
Yeah.
it's done with.
Yeah.
Let's let him move on.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, I would love to see like how it would play out if Tom tries to like win MJ back and also help Ned remember like it's the three of us.
Yeah.
You know? Like
Yeah.
it's sad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean I'm literally 50-50 about it. I was like, yeah, I would love to see them try to get back together. Mm-hmm. You know, just because it's Tom and Zendaya and they're so good together. But it's also like, what if Peter needed that? Mm-hmm. Like, what if he's just like, you know what? Start fresh, start new.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not part of the Avengers anymore. I'm not. It's just literally, it's just
him.
me. Mm-hmm. Like his real origin story, like Spider-Man origin story.
Yeah, exactly.
So now he can just start this new life, and he goes to college.
Yeah.
And he meets somebody that's not named
Shwen Shmeshi.
or Shalisha Shardy.
Shalisha Fardy.
Yeah, like it could be anybody that's not like MJ. Like maybe like at the start of it he does try, but at the end of it he's like, it's just not. No, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's very possible that, you know, like they're always good about giving a twist that is just like, oh, well, shoot, right? And so I could see them really sticking ground in that he has recollections of MJ, and he's almost like the Andrew Garfield one where he doesn't quite ever move on. He might have some bumps along the way where he does give in and try to date a little bit, but ultimately just never does. I personally would like to see MJ at least once more.
Sure.
But if they like, it's either there's no in between. They either get together or it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
There's nothing
Pretty
in
much.
between. And so I almost, by that logic, don't want to see her. Like, I think they cut it at a good point.
Yeah.
Clearly it's not ideal, but if that makes room for him to progress as a character and then move on and mature in a way that he needs to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, that's the Peter Parker way, right? They have to lose something to really gain whatever they need next in their lives. And so it's like Uncle Ben, it's Aunt May, it's Gwen Stacy. So for once it's Mary Jane. He had to lose Mary Jane to actually move on.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. But yeah, I don't think it's the last that we've seen of any iteration of MJ. But
sure, but it's also hard to be like you have Zendaya in your film, you're not going to have her,
right?
You know, so there's that aspect of it, but
it's just like the it's the Downey effect, though, right? It's like, how much more do we want to milk this character before it's just not? Yeah, you know, you got to have her
Zendaya's doing big things now, you know. Yeah.
She always has been. She was born doing big things.
Exactly, but now it's like it's hitting a peak where it's like, like, yeah, she's in Spider-Man. Mind you, she's also in Euphoria. Exactly. Oh, also she's in Dune.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also she's also a very successful model
and artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think we're closing the book on her for now, but there's a bookmark
for sure.
Yeah. And so that leaves suggested reading. I kind of cobbled this list together. It's just the ones that I would just, sure, why not, right off the bat. Like I mentioned, 2022's Black Cat and Mary Jane, Dark Web by Jed McKay, Vincenzo Caratu, and Brian Reber. 2002, personal favorite, Spider-Man Blue by Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale, and Steve Buccellato. Of course, that gives a little more insight to, it seems like a love story for just Gwen, but MJ's very prominent in it. You get a very good sense of her character in there and how she matures after the fact in just 6 issues. Great read. 2007's One More Day and 2009's Brand New Day from teams led by J. Michael Straczynski and our homie Dan Slott.
Woo!
And last but not least, of course, you gotta tip your hat to the classics. The 1963 run of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, specifically issue number 42, where she makes her big debut with her face showing, which is definitely a must-read. And that said, that is the end of the show.
Woo!
Thanks for listening, guys.
Mary Jane!
Parker. Next episode.
Oh, so good.
We've not picked our next episode yet.
Oh my gosh.
But if timing is correct, we'll be hitting just before Loki. So we might surprise you yet.
Ooh.
So Jeff and I will talk about it.
Ooh.
We do have those choices from the polls as well.
Yes.
But we'll see what happens. For now, a We Are Groot salute to Laura, Katie, Joe Liz, Ashley, Melanie, Andrea, Ed, Eve, Nats, Claire, Ariel, Robin, Tyler, Jenny, Edgar, Chris, Andrew, and Sherry. Follow us on social, STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, review, rate, and subscribe.
Woo! Once again, thanks for listening. We'll catch y'all in the next one.
See you later.
Bye.
Parker!
Bye.
Can we just stay up here all day? It is so crazy down there.
Wait, this one's good. Some suggest that Parker's powers include the male spider's ability to hypnotize females, which he used to seduce Jones Watson into his cult of personality.
Stop.
Yes, my spider lord.